Alright, howdy folks, and welcome to Gridiron Live. We're going to get back into NCAA 98 with the Texas A&M Dynasty. We are currently 5-3, and I believe we are 22nd. We're in like the low 20s as far as national ranking. I think we fell out of the rankings there for a little bit, but I think we're back in the mix. Today's music that you are listening to in the background is an album called Flash Graphics 1988. It's primarily composed by Geoffrey Bastow, and then there's one or two tracks by Patrick Wilson. And it's a nice little album. Haven't played it before on the channel, so we're gonna see what the copyright impact is. I guess once the stream is over. But until then, we are gonna see how we're gonna do with this dynasty. So let's see. Last two games were against Texas Tech and Oklahoma State, which we both won. Texas Tech, we beat them with a last-minute touchdown, and of course Oklahoma State, we did win convincingly 34-10. So there's only 3 games left in the regular season. We got Baylor, Oklahoma, a bye week, and then the bitter rival Texas. So I don't think we're going to get to all 3 today, but I think we are going to be playing Baylor and Oklahoma right after this.
The right to bear arms is guaranteed in the Constitution, sir.
We're going to hold on to him by the nose, and we're going to kick him in the ass. We're going to kick the hell out of him all the time, and we're going to go through him like crap through a goose.
Roger Vick pounded his way for 11 yards and a touchdown after taking...
We're going to cut out their living guts and use them to grease the treads of our tanks. We're going to murder those lousy Hun bastards by the bushel.
All right. So I went to the local game store yesterday, and I was looking for an Xbox 360 controller that was wired, because my wireless one, the battery pack, like, it's loose, so it's constantly disconnecting. I honestly would rather just have... I'd rather just have a wired controller, but they didn't have anything that wasn't like over $20, which I didn't want to spend. But I found a couple goodies. These look like comic books from here. What these are? They are Sega Saturn game manuals, back when manuals used to be a thing. Of course, we have Madden 98. We also have Acclaim's NFL Quarterback Club 96. We got Steve Young on the cover of that. Pretty nice. And of course, we have Sega Sports NFL 97. Right there. Nice little blast from the past. Yeah, these were like 99 cents each, so that was an easy buy. No one else was probably going to buy that. But the coolest thing that I found yesterday was a copy of Bill Walsh College Football, first one, on Sega Genesis. Look at that. It's like a whole book. You guys remember when games used to feel like something? But not just that. I mean, I had briefly heard that this game had a lot of stuff in it. Obviously, we have the game, but I'm not going to go through it right now, mostly because you can't really see it through that camera. But there's a lot of cool stuff in Bill Walsh College Football, other than, of course, the game, which isn't the greatest, but there's a lot of cool stuff in it. So we're going to be doing an unboxing kind of that game at some point, once I get a second camera. I could just use my phone, which I've done before. So, but anyway.
Kickoff return 16 yards by number 22.
All right. So I'm just assuming that Baylor is a passing team. So we're going to find out. But there was a lot of cool games that I found. They also had Bill Walsh College Football 95. But it didn't have any of the literature in it. And I don't have a Sega Genesis. So it wasn't really worth anything to me. Even the game that I did get, I mean, I don't have a Genesis, so I can't play it natively. I have it on emulator, of course, but physically I can't play it. But they had college football, Bill Walsh 95. The original one came out in 93. And I didn't see any copies of 2K5 in the Xbox section. I usually see that game when I go there, but none this time. They had World Series Baseball 2K3, which I've been looking at the 2K3 line of games. The UI in those games is just amazing. I think 2K3, like UI wise, is one of the best in the whole series. 2K5, you know, their UI is okay. But it doesn't really have that super nostalgic look like the 2K3 games do. Interesting thing about 2K3 is that, oh, interception right at the end zone. Cool thing about, or the interesting thing about the 2K3 line of games is that I don't think they were all made by Visual Concepts. There's no way that they could be, because they were all released the same year at different times. But I think Visual Concepts, pretty sure they did NFL 2K3. I don't know if they did college hoops or college basketball 2K3. They might have. I don't think so though. And you can really tell the difference in the 2K3 games. Like college hoops 2K3 is visually one of the best in that year. College Football 2K3, not so much. It's probably one of the worst looking ones, one of the worst playing ones that year, unfortunately. And I wish instead, I think they got Avalanche Studios to do College Football 2K3. And I mean, they did okay. Had Visual Concepts done it, it would have turned out way better. If you look at College Hoops 2K3, you'll notice that they have like player avatars. Oh, come on. Time to punt. They have like the player pictures, and obviously they're not the actual players because they can't use their likeness. But I wish they had done that in College Football 2K3. It adds a lot of life to the game. You know, even though they have a limited amount of faces, it still adds personality to your players who otherwise are just, you know, lines of text. The 2K3 is actually one of the coolest years in the 2K sports games. And so I don't think I've played baseball, MLB 2K3, whatever it's called. I might have to check that one out. And it was for PlayStation 2. So. Alright. So let's try to pay attention to the game and not lose. Looks like Baylor's coming out with the fullback and they hand it off to number 22. Gain of 5. 3rd and 4. Let's go 4-3. 4-3 man. And they're going to go 4 wide. Or 3 wide, I think. They got a couple tight ends. Good defense by the defensive back there. So A&M and Baylor is another old Southwest Conference matchup. I think it was, I was reading a little bit about the demise of the Southwest Conference. And according to what I read, the Southwest Conference wanted to merge in its entirety with the Big 8. And the Big 8 had teams like Nebraska, Colorado, stuff, teams in that area, like the Middle Central Plains area. So they wanted to merge in their entirety and form like a super conference. But apparently the Big 8 didn't want that. And they only wanted the top 4 of the Southwest Conference to merge. And that's ultimately what ended up happening. The top teams in the Southwest Conference were, of course, Texas, A&M, Baylor, and Tech. All the lower tier Southwest Conference teams like Rice, SMU, TCU, all those teams. I think by this point Arkansas was already gone. But those teams didn't make it to what ended up being the Big 12. But it's cool to kind of read the politics of conference realignments throughout history. But I think it would have been kind of interesting to see like a 16-team super conference that was made from the Southwest Conference and the Big 8. But we ended up getting the Big 12. Oh, that's false start. So we get a little break there. Start at 1st and 15. Of course, the Big 12 isn't really what it used to be, especially with Texas and Oklahoma leaving. That is for sure.
2nd and 15 at the 16-yard line.
Where's my mouse?
Run by number 22 for a
Yeah, with Texas and Oklahoma leaving, and I don't know what the Big 12 is going to do. I think they'll still survive, but is it going to be considered a Power 5 conference, the Big 12, once Texas and Oklahoma leave? And with the teams that they do have left, they're still better than the G5 conferences, because they have teams like Texas Tech and Baylor, TCU, Kansas State, obviously. But I mean, the Big 12's been gutted. Nothing like the Pac-12 though, which I don't know that much about, but I mean, I think everyone knows by now that the Pac-12 is basically no more.
Texas A&M ball, 1st and 10 at the 47-yard line.
Nice gap there.
Run by
Number 34. Do we have a play action here? The play action is, I think, here. Let's just go corners. I think that's a cool play.
2nd and 2 at the 39-yard line.
And caught by tight end number 89. Spin move and taken down.
Back complete to number 89 for a gain of 16 yards.
1st and goal. We'll run to the right side. And we got a couple.
For a gain of 3 yards.
I think we'll hit this play action now.
And 8 at the 21-yard line.
Almost intercepted.
Broken up by number 58.
All right, 3rd and 8. Right here, I probably want to center up the ball just because of how hard field goals are from the side camera. We'll see if we can't center this up a little bit. And we do perfectly.
Run by number 20, loss of 3 yards on the play.
It's not the best thing to be playing for field goals, but we're not in dire need of points right now.
24-yard line.
And there we go. 3 points. 6 plays, 23 yards, minute 35 off the clock. Just like that, we go up by 3. One of the reasons that I like to buy these game manuals of old sports games is because of the game that I'm making a while back. I thought I was going to write out a game manual, kind of like an RPG book, before I even started writing the game. And it was a lot of work, and I found out that it didn't really make sense to do that because I didn't know how I was going to change things. So why put in all the work to make this really nice looking book when it's just all going to change later on. Oh, intercepted. Number 21, tackled at the 30.
Interception made by number 21. Return 16 yards.
So I still want to make a game manual,
And 10 at the 31-yard line.
but I want to make it a little bit simpler, kind of like the older ones were,
By number 20.
less colorful and all that. But possibly I was thinking about having like a physical release for the game, not as the only form of buying it, but as an extra.
30-yard line.
How cool would it be? Nice catch. How cool would it be to have a physical release like this? You know, Bill Walsh College Football. But instead of that, it would just be my game. I'm guessing I would have to. I'd have to. Oh crap! We call it a timeout here. Totally not keeping track of time.
Timeout, Texas A&M. They have 2 remaining.
6 seconds. I think I'm going to do the same thing that I did last time.
First and
Hopefully he doesn't take forever to get tackled. Ooh, 1 second.
timeout, Texas A&M.
Alright, let's see if we can't make this field goal. So it just has to go to the left just a little bit.
The 5-yard line. Is no good.
So we need 2 taps. I tapped it once that time, we need 2 taps. I should probably practice field goals in the side camera,
Score, Texas A&M.
just so I can kind of get a gauge.
0.
Like if I'm at the 10, how many taps to the left or to the right do I need to be? I'm sure there's a science to that. Let's look at the top games. LSU over Bama. Duke currently up 2 touchdowns over number 22 Clemson. Vandy and Florida in a close one. Missouri not that far off of Nebraska, 20-10. Here's a big game, Florida State and North Carolina. 1 point difference. Michigan and Penn State off by 8 points. See if there's any upsets going on. Doesn't seem like it. So what I was saying about the physical release is it'd be cool to have a physical release game as an option instead of, you know, only releasing on Steam. It would be a way to support the game additionally if you wanted to.
Line number 8.
I think that'd be cool. Physical media, especially in games, isn't really. It's definitely been on the decline for a long time. There's people that don't even
8-yard line.
buy physical games anymore.
Pass complete to number 30.
And I do it mostly out of novelty, like for the PlayStation 2 or PS1, because I have emulators for those games. I'd still buy it for the Xbox 360, even though I guess I could just use the 360 or PS3 emulators that are out now, since they're actually pretty decent. That's a touchdown, I think. There we go. He could go all the way. Touchdown, number 7. Or sorry, number 88. Check out the replay. All the way to the house. And we're good to go. I am going to drop the stream link into old Discord channel. Let's see, we're gonna go to we'll go to the channel Discord. And let's see. Maybe we'll go to the Retro Sports Gamer channel. Sometimes we get some people from there that like these games. All right.
Kickoff return 15 yards by number 22.
So we got a 10-point lead on Baylor. I think the secondary's been doing a good job of covering the pass.
Second and 10 at the 28-yard line.
I bet they run this play. No. Intercepted again, number 27. Still on his feet.
Interception made by
Man.
number 27. Returned 14 yards.
Secondary's been stingy today.
A&M ball, first and 10 at the 27-yard line.
Spin move, all for nothing. Short loss.
For a short loss. Second and 11 at the 27.
Now they're in the 3-4. Tackled at the line.
Run by
Okay.
number 34, loss of 1 yard.
Guess we'll have to go shotgun then.
Third
This might be a 3-and-out though.
29-yard line. Pass is broken up by number 46.
We're at the 29. Probably should have ran it actually. We can definitely kick a field goal here.
4th and 12 at the 29-yard line.
And we got it.
It's good.
Well, we got a 3-and-out, but we did capitalize still. We got some points. Really bad drive summary stats there. But that's the benefit of getting a turnover inside a field goal range. Is that you're under no pressure to
Kickoff return 16 yards by number
score a
22.
touchdown. So that really helps.
Baylor ball, first and 10 at the 34-yard line.
That's a tackle for loss.
Run by number 22, loss of 5 yards on the play.
I think we're going to
Second and 15 at the
stay in this 3
28-yard
deep defense. Now they run it, still tackled at the line.
7 is stopped for no gain.
3rd and 16.
Third
Now they're going to go 3 wide. Man in motion. For 17. Short pass. Gain of 11. Still not enough, though.
for 80 for a gain of 11 yards.
They're going to go for it. No.
And 4 at the 39-yard line.
I think my restream is a little bit behind. Just need a refresh. Alright. Well, Baylor hasn't done much against us. The defense has really been keeping us in the game. Nice run there by 34.
34 for a gain of 14 yards. First and 10 at the 48-yard line.
Honestly, I'm already thinking about,
Flag on the play.
oh, PI.
Pass interference, number 46.
Already thinking about warming up the buses, because this has kind of been a little lopsided thanks to the defense. It's still low scoring, but Baylor hasn't been able to do much of anything.
First and 10 at the 36.
And we get delay of game.
Delay a game on the offense.
All right.
First and
We can manage with that.
at the 38-yard line.
We'll pitch out to 34. He's See, the running backs in this game, the AI, they kind of change angles too soon. Had he kept going diagonally there, he would have gained like at least 5 yards, possibly more.
Second and 8 at the 30-yard line.
There we go. That's a touchdown.
Touchdown, Texas A&M.
There we go.
Is good.
20-0. Not a good day for the Baylor Bears. And it's cool to see those two helmets together. I'm still thinking of the Southwest Conference.
Kickoff return.
I'm assuming that the demise of the Southwest Conference probably didn't go so well for the lower tier teams.
And 10 at the 29-yard
I'm thinking Rice, SMU. Oh yeah, I forgot about Houston. TCU.
for a gain of 13 yards.
Who else? Did I say Baylor already? I think no.
First and 10 at the 42-yard line.
Seems like Houston kind of Houston, TCU. That's a touchdown, maybe. Oh, they got him.
Pass complete to number
Seems like a lot of the Southwest Conference
39 yards.
low-tier teams kind of fell into obscurity, from what I can gather.
First and 10 at the 19-yard line.
Houston, I think they went to the Conference USA, which I think was that was right in his hands.
Pass is broken up by
Houston went to Conference USA, I think, and they really didn't do much until, it seems like, not until Kevin Sumlin. So Houston was probably more of a basketball team anyway. But the height of Houston football, I guess, was really like Andre Ware and then Kevin Sumlin era, which is still a lot more than a lot of teams can say.
At the end of the third quarter, the score is Texas A&M 20 and Baylor
To be,
0.
I didn't like or dislike Kevin Sumlin, not as a person, but just as a coach. I mean, he definitely called some of the biggest games in A&M's history, in recent history. You had, of course, the win over Alabama. You had the win over Oklahoma. Just beat the brakes off the Sooners in that Cotton Bowl, the 2013 Cotton Bowl. So he had 2 good years, and then after that, it seems like he wasn't really. He was like those air raid teams. Like Kevin Sumlin seems to me like he's one of those air raid coaches that can win some mid-tier games and occasionally will win some big games. But for the most part, they're not going to be able to compete with the best of the best on a consistent basis. And that's kind of what I think. It seems like that was the total effect of Kevin Sumlin, was, you know, starting in 2014, the Aggies would get off to a hot start. You know, they go 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, and so they'd get into the rankings, get into the top 20, top 15. And then some of the bigger teams would come along and then beat the brakes off of them and then finish the year 7-4. And that's including all the cupcake games against Nichols State and Sam Houston and all those kind of teams. So even in Kevin Sumlin's 8-4, 8-5 kind of record, that isn't as mediocre as you think, because that record's inflated by those weaker teams. So Kevin Sumlin wasn't going to be beating strong teams in the SEC, I don't think, on a consistent basis. So that was kind of my gripe with Kevin Sumlin. But honestly, I think that I probably would have given him another year. Let's try to go. Oh, this isn't. I thought that was at their 30, at my 30. In 2017 or 2018, was it? I think it was 2017 when A&M fired Sumlin. I didn't. Of course, at that time, it wasn't a given that Jimbo Fisher was going to be coming to A&M. Of course, there were those conspiracy theories about Jimbo's Christmas tree because he had tossed it out to the curb, and that really got people speculating. It's like, why would you throw out your Christmas tree if you're not moving? You know, I remember that. I remember seeing that, and I was thinking, that got me thinking, like, yeah, maybe Fisher is coming to A&M. But yeah, in 2017, it wasn't at all clear who A&M's next coach was going to be. And so I was kind of... I was actually willing to take someone for one more year. But the fact that they were able to get Fisher at that specific time, it's understandable, at least then, why A&M jumped on that opportunity. And while I don't think, I think that it obviously hasn't paid off the way people expected. I mean, it never goes the way people expect. Busy360, how's it going? He says, the broadcast camera goes hard. Oh yeah, that's the only way I play NCAA 98 is the broadcast camera. The caveat is that I'm playing in coach mode, so I just call the plays and let the players do the playing. So, I think it's fun. Not every game had the side cameras. The Maddens were especially bad about not having the side camera, especially later on. I think 2K Football always had the broadcast cameras, which is cool. Busy says that's interesting. Yeah, I'm more of a coach mode kind of guy. Like I like my arcade football every now and then. But usually I kind of want to take a more of a coach role. Like if I'm making coach decisions like rosters and recruiting and, you know, acquiring players, why is it that I also have to control the players, you know? The players are their own entity. At least that's the way that I see it. The demo camera in Madden 2001-3 was difficult for me to play with because of all the funky camera angles. Oh, the demo camera. They in NCAA 2004, basically all the PS2 NCAA football games, they do have the broadcast camera, but it's only in demo mode, like you said. And they do have side camera, but they don't have the broadcast camera for user games, which sucks. Because that broadcast camera was really nice. I mean, sometimes I would just put two AI teams and just kind of watch it. Oops. I'm especially a fan of doing that. It's because I like to get immersed into the football world. Yeah, that is true. And you could also play with it in 2K Football with the broadcast camera. I think starting in 2004 or 2K4 or 2K3 is when they took the broadcast camera out of the menus. You can still use it, but you have to do a little something before you can use it. The way you can use a broadcast camera in 2K football games, like 2K5, for example, if it's not in the menus, the way you do it is that you leave, like when you're picking your teams, you leave the controller in the middle first, and then you start the game. And then once you're in the game, you switch to your team, and it's just the camera is default to the broadcast. So playing coach mode in 2K5 is just so much better with the broadcast camera.
3rd and 7 at the 29-yard line.
Whenever I play the new Madden games with my friends, we just play on broadcast mode. It's really fun. But do you control the players with broadcast camera? I feel like you can't really do that very well. And not just be messing up all the time.
4th and 7 at the 29-yard line.
Like, the side camera in this game is playable, but you're kind of playing it more like Tecmo Super Bowl if you've ever played that. To where once the receivers run off the screen, you're kind of just throwing in the dark and hoping they're open. Part of the fun was throwing the ball up and not knowing if someone was covered or not. Oh man. I wouldn't mind that for a game like Tecmo Super Bowl. And honestly, in this game, it's manageable. But if I'm playing competitively, like if I'm gonna control the players, I want to see where the receivers are. That way, if something goes wrong, I know it was my fault. But you know, if you wanted to present a new kind of handicap, you know, a new challenge, I can see that being pretty challenging.
1st and 10 at the 35-yard line.
Empty set, number 17 throws it deep. Oh, and he catches it. And roughing the passer. Gotta be careful here because Baylor can still win with a touchdown and a field goal here.
1st and goal at the 5-yard line. Penalty on the play.
Pass interference.
Pass interference.
They're gonna decline. That's a touchdown. All right, Baylor goes up by a point here, assuming they can score the extra point, which they probably will. So that leaves us 35 seconds to win the game. A little bit of an unexpected turn here in the 4th quarter. Might have been playing a little too conservatively, just playing to milk the clock. All right. Really like to get this 6th win though. Playing against Oklahoma and Texas isn't going to get any easier.
27 yards by number 8.
So we got 2 timeouts, I think. Big catch.
Pass complete to number 37 for a gain of 20 yards. 1st and 10 at the 46-yard line.
All right, well, it leaves us 15. Need a deep pass here. Oh, that was so close. He was totally open. I'm back. All right, cool. That leaves us 10 seconds. I think we're just going to have to chuck it deep.
3rd and 10 at the 46-yard line. Pass is broken up by number 4.
All right, well, this could be the last play of the game. Can't believe Baylor snuck that 1 point in there. Of course, throw it to the end zone, not to the middle of the field. Wow. All right, well.
That's the end of the game with the final score, Baylor 21 and Texas
Baylor claws its way back after being scored on 20 unanswered points. Do you watch Miles Dawkins? I know of the channel. I don't watch it recreationally, like I don't. It's not a channel that I watch consistently, but I've seen a couple of videos. I'm honestly not a big fan of the format. There's a lot of people that do the kind of commentary over edited gameplay footage, and it works for him. He's probably one of the more recognizable ones, seems like. But I just don't like the format. But the games that he plays, you know, they're more in my wheelhouse, like NCAA 06, 04, those games. I do like that he plays older games. But usually I'm more of a live interaction kind of person. Man, not a loss I wanted to take. That's fair. Yeah. Just because I don't know if it's the format that gets repetitive or it's because it's not live. You can't really interact with them. But as far as the format itself, I mean, he's definitely good at it. So he's definitely got it working for him. So can't fault him there. I like live commentary more than post commentary, but his post commentary videos are still good. Yeah, I think what I like more is, I think partially it's because it's also the saturation or like the exhaustiveness of the games that have been played. Like we all know NCAA 06. We kind of know everything that can happen in NCAA 06. It's an older game. So the game itself doesn't bring a lot of interest to me. It's not that it's a bad game, it's just that like I've kind of, once you see like an hour of NCAA 06 gameplay, it looks all the same, even though the same stuff doesn't necessarily always happen on the field. But you know, the same stuff kind of happens over and over again. And that in itself isn't enough to keep my interest. I honestly don't watch any like sports games YouTubers other than the Retro Sports Gamer channel. And that's mostly because he plays like pre 2005 sports games, you know, starting from the NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis, all those consoles, Dreamcast, GameCube. He plays all the sports games on those consoles, and he typically does it live, so you can kind of talk about whatever, sports, whatever, here and there, other topics. So that's one of my favorite channels. It's a good channel for sure. Although he hasn't been on lately, which sucks. But you know, he's got a life to run and all that, so can't fault him. All right, so we lose to Baylor 21-20. Definitely blew that lead. very reminiscent of 2011, 2010 Texas A&M blowing all those halftime leads. We're getting some foreshadowing for Mike Sherman. NCAA 06 is fun to watch, but after a while it does get boring and repetitive, so I get that. Yeah, those games weren't made to last decades, you know, because they were released on an annual schedule, so it had enough content to last you a year before the next one came out. And even then, the next one wasn't that different. Usually it was better, not all the time, but it occasionally dropped some new things and, of course, improved things here and there. But the sad part is that just like people have been ranting about Madden and the NFL license, I've been a part of that crew for, I don't know, since 2014, so I'm definitely a veteran at doing that, but the same is true for college football. I think the last competitor was, well, if you count college basketball, the last one was 2008. But college football, the last one was 2003, which is a long time. And I'm not counting the that 360 game that was like black college football, the experience or something. I'm not counting that one. That one was kind of a one-off thing. But yeah, 2K3 was the last year that we had like real solid competition in the college football space. And it's not exactly clear why it didn't continue. As far as I know, there weren't any licensing issues. You know, the NCAA isn't as centralized as the NFL. Like, you can not have the NCAA license, but still have licenses from, you know, Texas A&M and Baylor and Michigan. You can get them all individually. But you don't need the NCAA license. You just need licenses for the teams, for the individual schools. So, you know, it's probably a financial reason why they stopped making that game. But, and what sucks even more is that NCAA or college football 2K3 wasn't even made by the A team. It wasn't made, or it wasn't developed by Visual Concepts, I don't think. I think it was developed by Avalanche Studios. And they did okay, but if you compare that to NFL 2K3, you compare it to college basketball 2K3, you can tell the difference. You know, the other 2K3 games were of much higher quality. Probably money reasons. Well, I think it probably just didn't sell as well as EA's football game, and so they you have to remember that this was in the time when well, before that, there was a time when if you were developing sports games, you probably wanted to have a game for every sport. Look at 989 Sports and EA. 989 had basketball, college and pro, football, college and pro. They had motocross, they had extreme football like Blitz, they had racing. What else did they have? I mean, EA had all those sports and more. They had golf, you know, racing, of course. And then that kind of era ended once you started getting into the early 2000s. And then you still had companies competing on multiple fronts, but it was less, you know. It was only football and basketball, or maybe just baseball or something.
Kickoff returned 11 yards by number 3.
So there's no, I don't know why 2K didn't, you know, maybe take a couple of years off like they did with their pro football game, and then come back stronger in a couple of years. But I mean, after 2008, 2K just checked out of football completely. NCAA Game Breaker was competition for a little bit, but to my memory it was nowhere near as popular as EA, but died after 2003. Game Breaker was done in 2004, I think. No, I think you're right. Let's see. No, you're right. I have my copy of Game Breaker 2004 for the PS2 down there. And that means that they released it in 2003. So, yeah, Game Breaker and Game Day were definitely, in my opinion, superior all around on the PS1. But they didn't make that translation well, that transition to the PS2. You could tell right when EA released their 2002 college game. Like, if you go back and look now, it's just like, wow. I don't know what EA did in that transition, but they did something very well, and it made a better game, you know. Game Breaker still had cool features, but it wasn't anything compared to EA's college game. But I still play Game Breaker, but just on the PlayStation 1. Because their PS2 football games, unfortunately, aren't really playable. I mean, they're playable, but they're severely lacking in some on-field stuff. The franchise modes, like the career modes, are also lackluster. So they abandoned football too, and they just stuck to baseball. Baseball and soccer. And then they quit soccer. Oh, QB sneak. So they quit that. But there were a lot of sports titles and series that kind of died around 2004, 2005. I call that time period the sports gaming apocalypse. Because we lost so many games. And that's not even counting all the games that had fallen off up to that point. You know, we'd lost Quarterback Club. We lost, of course, 2K Football, Game Day, Game Breaker, and then in other sports, we lose NBA Shootout. We lose NCAA Final Four, which was the college basketball 989 sports game. We lose All-Star Baseball 2005, the whole series. We lose Quarterback Club. I think I said that one already. It's like everything died that year. And we saw a couple new ones crop up, but it wasn't anything that was going to last. We had, I mean, college hoops was still going for a couple years until 2008. And of course we got All Pro Football 2K8. And of course that was a one-off, unfortunately. And that game I think is still the best on-field gameplay I've ever played. I mean, it's just light years ahead. It still holds up today. I haven't really played any of the next generation Maddens. I don't really care to. So I can't say out of experience that a game like 2K8 is going to be better. But I would assume that it is because it's so good. I remember playing that game online, which I think you can still do, 2K8.
Texas A&M ball, first and 10 at the 24-yard line.
I mean, some of the best online gaming I've done was playing 2K8, All Pro Football 2K8 on Xbox Live. It was fun.
At the 29-yard line.
The 2K8 online community, at least that I was a part of, I mean, it felt like we were like in the wilderness, and when we found another person who would play 2K8 online, we would have to add them to the part, or add them as a friend, because we wanted to know when they were online. Big pass here. We wanted to know when they were online, so at night we'd have like 5, 6, 7 people in the party on Xbox Live, and then everybody in that group was like a character. It's just so funny. A lot of trash talking. Good times.
At the 29-yard line.
I noticed that each current company mainly focuses on one or two sports. EA is football and hockey. 2K is NBA. San Diego Studios 989 is baseball. I don't know if... I think Sony dropped the 989 Sports brand, because 989 Sports was a brand, because several studios developed under that name. The guys that made Game Day, I think, was Red Zone Interactive, and they went as 989 Sports. Of course, the people that made the MLB games and other Sony sports games were other studios. But I don't think they use that name anymore. I think they just go under Sony Studios or something like that. But yeah, they primarily do baseball now, and they've definitely cornered that market. It would be cool if the quality of that baseball game was just a football game, but you know, that's not how things ended up turning out. We're just getting destroyed here. Does 2K8 support 5 versus 5 online? I've never done anything more than 1v1. Although, I mean, judging by the Xbox, I would assume that maybe you can do multiple players versus multiple players. I've never seen it, though.
Pass complete to number 33 for a gain of 5 yards.
Yeah, I don't know. But nothing ever led me to believe that you could do that.
Second and 5 at the 29-yard line.
But yeah, you're right that sports games are now kind of just one company, one league. It used to be that leagues would give their license out to multiple studios. But that doesn't happen anymore. There's like this obsession over... This isn't really egregious with the NFL. For some reason, the NFL likes that sort of one game, one league kind of marketing scheme. Like when you're watching an NFL game, they can play Madden commercials. And everyone knows, you know, that's NFL the video game. You're watching NFL the TV show, now you can go and play NFL the video game. And it doesn't conflict like having 2 or 3 different studios. It wouldn't be conflicting like that. And that just seems to be the way it is now. Which sucks. I don't think we'll ever really go back to the time when you could have the NFL having 3, 4 different studios making NFL products. Or have the NBA, you know, have 4 different games. I think those days are long gone. I think that's just the way people think about marketing now. Whoever's running all that, that's the conclusion they've come to. So that's why I like unlicensed games. You have to be careful with unlicensed games because you really have to put a lot of time. You have to put a lot of time into crafting the teams that are in the game. If you just throw teams in there like the New England Penguins and the Boston Crocodiles or the stuff like that, those don't sound like teams that have history. They don't sound real, and it's hard to make something that sounds like it has history. But if you can craft, you know, a football world that seems real, like it's, you know, has 50 years of history, then you're onto something. They sent out the contract in the first place because of money. Yeah, I don't know how it all started. I mean, we all know the story between EA and 2K. But like, what was the motivation for the NFL that had 2 developers selling products for them? Instead, now they only have 1. I don't know how that all looked on paper, and I don't know if it was EA. I think it was EA that offered to pay a huge sum of money to have exclusivity with the NFL license. That's probably what it was. But it's cool to play as real teams, but I think I've been over that for a while. Like I said, some of the best fun I've had in a football video game is in 2K8, and that's, you know, fake teams. They have real players, but still not a real league. They said something along the lines of, "This brand is too premium and it shouldn't be discounted," or some BS like that. Because in their minds, if you only have one company making simulation football games, there would be no reason to lower the prices. You can sell every game at full price and nobody will do anything about it. Yeah, well, you probably have something probably right about that. Let me kick this field goal first.
At the 29-yard line.
Come on, get in there. There we go. Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, the NFL, I don't know if it could legally be defined as a monopoly, but it has a monopolistic effect. Because the NFL kind of owns football in a way. You know, if their name isn't on it, well, that's not real football. I think that's what happens in people's minds. People are married to license. That's obvious. That's why you have an unlicensed game versus a licensed game. You know, I can play as the Joe Schmoes, or I can play as the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to play as the Packers if you give them that choice. But I think slowly, I don't think it's the majority, but I think people are beginning to see that license, especially with the NFL that curates its license, that says, well, you can't show this, you can't show that. You know, it has to be this way, it can't be that way. People see that that's what the NFL, that's how they use their license. I think a lot of people are beginning to see that that's not really the best thing. Or that it's not conducive to the best possible game. But obviously there's still the majority of people that the majority of people that think, or that don't think, I should say, that don't think about it, or that they do but they buy it anyway. All the soccer moms that are buying the football games for their kids, and all the My Ultimate Team addicts that can't help but spend $300 on stupid card packs or whatever it is that they do. I remember I used to work at this electronics repair store. This was years ago. And he brought in his PS4. And he sounded desperate. He was like, please, you gotta fix this. Oh, there we go. He's like, you gotta fix this, you know, you gotta fix my PS4. I've spent like, he said like $200, $300 on Ultimate Team stuff. This was, I don't know, 2000, it was several years ago. And I wanted to say, well, that sounds like your problem, not mine. You know, you gotta give him the customer service spiel. And I think he's probably an extreme example, but given how profitable Ultimate Team apparently happens to be, I mean, several $100s probably isn't that far off of the average. Hate to say it. There we go. I think that bounced off the Oklahoma defender. Alright, well, we are still in this game. 10-14. Midway were mad at first that EA swiped the license, but they turned what would be weakness into a strength. Oh yeah, I forgot about Midway. That's another one that I didn't mention. They're another game that fell off in the 2005 apocalypse. Of course, you had the Blitz games that they've been making since what, 99? Then you had that series of that run. It was like 2002 to like 2000. 4 or 5. It ended with Blitz Pro, I think, which I played that a while back. It was actually pretty good. Like it, NFL Blitz Pro kind of played a little bit more like a PS2 version of PS1 Game Day, if that makes any sense. Because PS1 Game Day, it leaned a little bit more on the slightly like bigger hits, slightly, it's like slightly more unrealistic in a way. So I was playing Blitz Pro, and obviously Blitz Pro is an arcade style game, but it's tamed, you know, it's not as ridiculous as some of the ones that came out before. But it felt like a better game day than the actual game days were on the PS2. But yeah, they lost that license around 2005. They took, what, 1 or 2 years off and came back with Blitz the League. So they made 2 of those games, and they still stopped making them, but they definitely did something with it. Uh-oh, Wake Forest up on Florida State, 26-17. LSU over #1 Notre Dame by 7. Miami only up by a touchdown against Rutgers. Without the license, they can do whatever they want with the game. Gruesome injuries, bigger hits, more realistic management. Yeah. That's why I think, in a way, the future of sports games, I think, is going to come from the middle market. We know what we're going to get from AAAs. They're going to be curated, polished, but ultimately not that unique. So I think people are going to start turning more towards at least the middle market. Indies are pretty volatile because of the low budgets and the lower skill sets that, you know, one random person is going to have. There's still good things that can come out of the indie market. But I think like the middle market, indies that kind of move into middle market space are going to be the future of sports games, and they're probably not going to be licensed, but I think they're going to offer much different experiences. Sports gaming, particularly football, is criminally underserved, but so that's one reason why I'm making my football game, which has been a lot of work, but you know, I'm definitely getting somewhere with it. They based their game off of Playmakers, and thus Blitz the League appeared. Playmakers was a show on ESPN. It lasted for 1 season, and it aimed to tell people things the NFL didn't want you to know. Yeah. They have, you know, the profitability of the NFL as a whole. You would expect that there would be incentive to protect that profitability. So if there's things that tarnish the image of the NFL, that harms the brand, you know. That's true for a lot of different companies. Pretty much every company. They don't want bad press. They don't want bad information to come out about them or stuff that's going on. That's always true. But yeah, I mean, there's the NFL and football in general isn't what it is in Madden. That's for sure.
Pass complete to number 1 for a gain of 19 yards.
You know, it's not a squeaky clean league. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve to exist. It just means that that's the nature of the league, and it also doesn't mean that, oh, that was a low catch. It also doesn't mean that the league doesn't try to make sure it tries to stay clean, but you know, there's bad things that happen. You can't show that stuff in a licensed game because they're obviously going to want to protect the brand. But I mean, we all know what the truth is, that it's not all clean. It's not all good. That's why stuff like scandals and different things like that, you don't really see that in sports games because they're licensed. Come on. 10.
Third and 10 at the 27-yard line.
Oh, dang it. Alright, we're going to have to kick the field goal. I probably should have ran it to the right, just to center it up a little bit. We're going to have to take tap to the right, I think. God. 2 taps. That was my chance to bring it within 1 point. Blew it.
Oklahoma ball, first and 10 at the 27-yard line.
Come on. One pattern I noticed for sports games from the pre-PlayStation era all the way up to the early PS3 era was that each different sport had the same engine as the other sport. Oh, yeah. That's no surprise. If it's within the same company, they're going to use the same technology. I mean, you can't. There's zero financial incentive to build an entirely new thing. And it's not obvious that that would even be a good thing. People assume that it would be. Now, of course, the drawback is that it all feels the same. It works, and that's the important thing. That's the thing that makes it sell. That it's good enough and it works. So you just take that and you tailor it to all the other sports that you have.
Third and 6 at the 42-yard line.
But yeah, same is true for 99 Sports. I mean, Game Day, Game Breaker definitely played very similarly. 2K, although obviously for 2K football, the pro games are always better. But you know, they played very similarly still. For example, Madden 06 has the same engine as NCAA 06. The Live, NCAA MVP, etc. Yeah. And I think I mean, was there a game company that made sports games multiple sports ever that ever had totally different engines? I don't think so.
Pass intended for number 20.
I don't think you would necessarily want to spend all the money to possibly make engine that's worse than what you've already made.
Run by number 34.
So simply having the same engine, I don't think is inherently a bad thing. It's just that the game design itself
First and 10 at the 40-yard line.
was the bad thing.
Pass is broken up by number 87. Second and 10 at the 40-yard line.
Get some yards here. There we go. And pass interference.
Pass interference from the defense, number 4.
I will take that.
First and 10 at the 47-yard line.
There we go.
Run by number 34 for a gain of 16 yards.
For a little while, EA developed different engines for different sports games. Did they? Like Madden 25 ran on a different engine from NHL 14.
Run by number 34, loss of 4 yards.
I've never played NHL 14. I haven't played a lot of NHL games in general. I don't know too much of how they feel.
At the 36-yard line.
But
Pass is broken up by number 43.
I think that's a little bit of an exception simply because EA Sports was in a transition phase. Because there was no Madden 14. It was called Madden 25. Because in Madden... Crap. Took control of him.
Run by number 7 for a gain of 7 yards.
That sucked. See what we can do here. We're back in this situation, so we need 2 taps.
9-yard line.
There we go.
Kick is good.
But yeah, they were in a transition phase. In 2000, the 2012 titles for some of the games were running on the previous engine. I think Madden 13 was the first EA football game to run on, I think, was it in the Infinity engine? That had all the players falling over each other. It just looked horrible. So NCAA 14 was the second one, and it was slightly more refined, but it's still ridiculous. It's also ridiculous that Backbreaker had a better concept of that years before, and they made it once. So, and then Madden 25 had it. It was kind of a transition period, so it's understandable why some of the games, they were kind of coming out with games that were on newer engines. Dang it. I just hope that if NHL 24's engine is good, they carry it over to Madden and even UFC. Frostbite engine is really stale now, and if NHL's engine, a good physics engine, then that could be good for Madden if they decide to carry it over. Well, the problems for Madden are a myriad of things. It's not just the engine, it's not just the design, it's not just, you know, their presence in the market. It's a lot of things. The combination of all of that stuff. So if they, even if they correct one, they still have to worry about all the other things. But at this point, I think they're almost too big to fail. I mean, I guess it's never true for a company because they have a limited amount of money, so it's impossible to be too big to fail. But it can be very hard to fail. Oh, it's short. But I mean, Madden still has, I think they still have years left. Even if they still get the same kind of negative press, negative coverage, and they keep making stuff that upsets a lot of people, they could do that for years and years and years to come, I think. And still be profitable because they have, you know, a zombie base. They have a fan base that's like has Stockholm syndrome in a way. That's just gonna keep buying it. So I personally don't care about Madden these days. 4th and 1, I feel like I gotta go for it. God dang it. I feel like I had good blockers, but just needed to find the right path. That's probably gonna get me. Backbreaker actually made a second game, but it was mostly the same. And IIRC. I don't know what IIRC means. Released only in Europe. I think they also had like a mobile app, I think. I remember seeing that. Come on. I'm aware of that, but I feel like having a dynamic engine similar to the Ignite engine could help gameplay. Yeah. That's another thing that works in Madden's favor. Is that even the people that might have some problems with Madden but still buy it, they're still going to buy it religiously. If Madden makes like a mild improvement, even if it's just in comparison to their last couple releases, never mind the fact that they had a superior product years before, so they make that mild improvement and it's as if, you know, they made a whole new thing, and it's going to bring a lot of people back into the fold. So ah, dang it. If I remember correctly, okay. I've never seen that acronym. Part of the reason Madden sucks now is because it's only animations. There's no physics involved.
Run by number 30 for a gain of 2 yards.
I'm a little bit when it comes to the whole physics versus animation thing. I disagree that something that is physics based is necessarily better than something that is animation based. I use quotes because those aren't actual technical terms. That's stuff that people that comment on Madden made up. And they're referencing real things, but it's not stuff that, like, it's not actual technical terminology. But you could really start calling timeouts, my god.
Timeout, Texas A&M. They have
All Pro Football 2K8. That game has one of the best, if not the best, gameplay models ever made. And
complete to number 34 for a gain of 10 yards.
I mean, it's
First and goal at the 8-yard line.
I don't think the 2K engine at that time was running on dynamic animations and, you know, physics and all that kind of stuff. But the way that they built their condition checking and their animation trees were probably very elaborate, complicated. And it made an excellent game that, while didn't have spontaneously generated animations, still had, you know, excellent gameplay. And I think physics, like dynamically generated animations, is a harder thing to make. Like, I don't think you can be a Tiburon style developer that just makes Madden every year. I feel like they don't have the talent to make a truly, you know, to make an engine that can really spontaneously generate believable animations that exclude, you know, wacky stuff from happening. That happens all the time in NCAA 14 and 25, or NFL Madden 25. Basically all the games that ran on that engine. So I actually don't care that much about physics versus animation. I just care that the gameplay is believable. And there's multiple ways you can do that. As long as bigger players feel like they have a bigger presence on the field, as long as faster players feel like they have a faster presence on the field, whether that's through a very complex animation system that doesn't generate animations, or if it's through an engine that spontaneously generates new animations dynamically. However you do that, as long as it's grounded and believable, doesn't have ridiculous things happening, you're good. That's one of the reasons why NCAA 14, in my opinion, is honestly not one of the best games in the series. They had some cool off the field stuff. You could like rename conferences, I think, and divisions, things like that. You could change the teams around to different conferences if you wanted to. But ultimately, the gameplay on the field was just wacky. Like if NCAA 13 felt stiff, NCAA 14 was the complete opposite. I mean, players just go flying off the field. You got the quarterback that's like halfway flipped upside down, throwing the football through his legs. 60-yard bombs. You got players that are like falling over each other. Just looks stupid. And so that kind of breaks your suspension of disbelief, and you're like, well, this is dumb. It just reminds you that you're playing a game. So things that help you believe in the football world are good, and things that do the opposite are bad. And I think that counts against NCAA 14. Man, so we lost 2 in a row. Honestly, I would have made that field goal that I missed against Oklahoma. Would have won that game. Now I have to get to 6 wins against Texas. And both of these games were winnable, Baylor and Oklahoma. I think I just let Baylor win. Oklahoma was a harder team, but special teams did me in that game. They added minicamp drills back, and they don't even work properly. Oh yeah, I saw that. Of course, I wouldn't know how well they played because I don't have the game. But I did see that people weren't really happy with them. Madden is even worse. Yeah. I think that is definitely a dead horse that people keep on beating, but also a dead horse that people keep on reviving it. Right? The fact that they keep buying it is a reason ultimately why it keeps sucking. So, but then there's just straight up, Madden fanboys that think it's the best thing ever. So those people, I don't know if they're in the majority, but they're definitely a giant piece of the puzzle as to why Madden is still around. And I have a copy here of Bill Walsh College Football, the Genesis. I don't think I'm worried about Madden 24 or whatever. And partially because I'm more interested in retro sports, it seems like. I don't like, for some reason, like the modern presentation of sports, I just don't like it. There's some kind of quality to the older presentation, like 90s, early 2000s, but like the absolute cutoff point I think is like 2007-ish. I think like the late 80s, definitely the 90s was like the height, was the peak of sports presentation. And it just, I don't know. I don't know what it is about that stuff, but, and I guess maybe the modern look of sports is something that I pick up on that people probably don't even think about, which I totally get, but I just like retro sports, I guess. So the fact that I'm like, why would I complain about a game that tries to simulate a sport that I don't even necessarily watch, you know? I watch college football, mainly for Texas A&M. I'll watch occasionally some other teams. But like for pro football, I'm totally checked out of that. I don't even keep up with it. I don't mind talking with people about it, but I'm not necessarily interested in it. I think what I like more is the fact that I can carry like the whole sports world in this digital package in a video game. Something about that, and the more believable it is, the better. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do with my game. It's create a very believable football world set in the 80s and 90s and have it be as immersive as possible. And make it feel like each different, like there's actually a world and there's characters in the world and every place feels different. It's not just a new screen, but there's actually different things there and different experiences. So that believability in the world, I think, is kind of the selling point. But at least here on the channel, I haven't shown anything from the game, but I do have a Discord. Eventually, I'll start with some devlog streams, so maybe people will be interested in that. But the Discord channel has 100 members now, which is kind of cool. And they all came for the game, so that's encouraging. And I've only been posting stuff about that for about a week or so, I think that'll be a good start for the Discord group. The 90s was a good time. Yeah, I remember very little from the 90s, but I remember playing like Genesis with my cousins, and I do remember things from when I was like 4 years old. I have some memories, and so a lot of my memories are more from the early 2000s. But just like any other decade, 1980 still feels like the 70s, you know. 1990 still feels like the 80s. 2000 still feels like the 90s. And it takes several years for that to kind of wear off and like different things crop up and become distinct in that decade. I don't know if that really happens anymore. Maybe because we're in it, we don't really get to see it or be aware of it. I don't know if like 50 years from now, people will look back on like the 2020s or the 2030s, you know, what happened in those decades? What was iconic in that time? It seems like new stuff doesn't really, like there's not like distinct things. Like when you think of the 80s, it's like, oh yeah, I know what that's about. And you think of all the different cultural things, all the different aesthetics of the 80s. You think of the 90s, it has its own thing, the 70s, the 60s, the 50s. Once you get to about like the 20s, 30s, 40s, they all kind of feel the same a little bit. And anything before 1800 obviously, instead of by decade, you start going by century. Games were just better. Oh, the nostalgia. ESPN 2K5 is still king as well. Games are just better. It's that simple. Well, for sure. I think it's not out of the realm of reason to say that something's better before. Simply because something happens today doesn't make it better than yesterday. So 2K5 is just a monument, And there were other games that had a lot of cool things about them. Even the bad games. I would still play the bad games because you could still see how different developers thought about things, and even if as a whole their game didn't end up working, it was still cool to see the different things that they would try to do, and maybe they thought about player ratings a different way, maybe they did this differently, and you would think, oh well, maybe if we took the ratings from this game and combined it with the mechanics from Madden, and then you took stuff from 2K, but you can't do that now because you get one thing and that's it. But that's why the indie market, middle market, I think is very important. But yeah, there was a lot of games that were just fun. 2K5 especially, but definitely a lot of other games. I think it was more, a big part of it was the ESPN presentation. Especially like the 2K3 ones had excellent ESPN visuals. Obviously 2K5. Excellent presentation. I strongly agree with all of your points. Well, guess that's good to know. I don't think anybody really disagrees with that. I think there's people that just want to experience the new thing. That's why they keep buying Madden, because their friends buy it, or because they feel like they're going to get left behind, or because they don't care, they got to go to work on Monday, and so they're going to get their football fix, if it's good or not, whatever. It's the new thing. So there's a lot of that, and you can't fault people too much for that. But I think at some point you have to, well, all I can say is that doesn't work for me. So if someone wants to play Madden until the end of time, whether it's the best game or the worst game, I say have at it. But me, I'm not stuck in the past. I'm stuck on better games. And I wish that we still had the kind of variety that we did, but we don't. So that is the state of things. We are 5-5. Not looking good. Best case scenario, we beat Texas. And then I don't know how many bowl games are in this NCAA football game. They got the Big Four. They got like the Sugar Bowl, the Rose Bowl, all those. I don't know if they have the smaller ones. I mean, they have to. But maybe we get into a bowl, get to 7-5. Not a good year for year one of the A&M Dynasty. But I think we're going to find that out next time, because that's going to do it for me. I have to do something. Well, I do too. But that's gonna do it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I just noticed that we had two people chatting here. We got Fizzy and Trez. That makes more sense. How's it going, Trez? If I'm not back, then have a good night. All right, cool. Yeah, so that's gonna do it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks, Fizzy and Trez, for stopping by. Always appreciate people in the chat. Makes things a little more fun, a little more interesting. With that being said, I will be seeing you guys in the next one.